Unspoken words have a way of lingering, creating a ripple effect that can lead to misunderstandings, unresolved emotions, and a growing sense of isolation. When we withhold communication, whether due to fear, discomfort, or a mistaken belief that silence is harmless, we unintentionally open the door to consequences that can deeply affect our relationships and the emotional well-being of those around us. Words, even when imperfect, provide clarity, connection, and validation, while silence can leave others in a state of uncertainty and emotional vulnerability. Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something we've all experienced and, perhaps unknowingly, been guilty of: silence. Not the kind of silence that offers peace or reflection, but the silence that comes when words are needed most and remain unspoken. Silence is a powerful form of communication, often conveying more than words ever could. However, its impact is not always positive. When we choose not to speak or engage in situations where communication is expected or necessary, silence can be misinterpreted in ways that cause emotional harm. People are naturally wired to seek connection, validation, and understanding from others. And when met with silence, they often fill the gap with their own assumptions, many of which are negative. This can lead to feelings of rejection, indifference, or even abandonment, even if our intention was far from that. One common misinterpretation of silence is that it signifies a lack of care or interest. Imagine someone sharing something deeply personal or important, only to be met with no response. For the person speaking, this silence can feel like a dismissal of their feelings or experiences. It sends a message, whether intended or not, that what they've shared doesn't matter enough to warrant acknowledgement. Even when silence comes from a place of uncertainty or fear, such as not knowing what to say or worrying about making things worse, it is often perceived as emotional withdrawal. The lack of communication in these moments can leave the other person feeling alone and unsupported. If this is the way you're feeling, then silence can also be interpreted as judgment. In situations where someone is vulnerable, such as admitting a mistake, expressing a fear, or sharing a struggle, a lack of verbal response can be taken as disapproval. For example, if a friend opens up about a failure and you remain silent, they might assume you're judging them harshly, even if your silence stems from simply not knowing how to comfort them. This is particularly common in relationships where trust and emotional intimacy are at stake. Silence in these contexts can erode that trust and create emotional distance, often without either party realizing why. Another way silence is misinterpreted is as rejection. Humans are social beings who thrive on interaction and connection. When someone reaches out, whether through a message, a gesture, or a conversation, and is met with silence, it can feel like a door being closed. This perceived rejection can be deeply hurtful, especially for individuals who are already feeling vulnerable or insecure. Even when silence is unintentional, such as forgetting to respond to a text or email, it can leave a lasting impression. To the person waiting for a response, the silence may feel deliberate, reinforcing feelings of unworthiness or exclusion. What makes silence so impactful is that it creates a void. In the absence of words, people are left to interpret the meaning on their own, often based on their fears or insecurities. This is why silence in critical moments can be so damaging. It leaves room for misunderstandings, assumptions, and emotional wounds that may have been entirely avoidable with just a few words of acknowledgement. A simple "I hear you," "I'm here for you," or even "I'm not sure what to say, but I'm listening," can make a world of difference in ensuring that silence is not mistaken for apathy or rejection. Silence is a choice, and it's important to recognize the weight it carries. While there are moments where silence can be thoughtful and necessary, it's essential to ensure that it doesn't unintentionally communicate the wrong message. By being mindful of how silence might be interpreted, we can foster better understanding and connection in our relationships, avoiding unnecessary hurt and strengthening the bonds that matter most. Connection is the foundation of all meaningful relationships, and vulnerability is the bridge that makes those connections strong and authentic. However, when we avoid expressing our emotions or engaging in difficult conversations, we inadvertently build barriers that distance us from others. Avoiding vulnerability through silence can be a defense mechanism, a way to shield ourselves from discomfort, rejection, or judgment. Yet, this very avoidance often deprives us of the deeper, more genuine connections that come from being open and honest. When we hold back from expressing our true feelings, especially during critical moments, we miss opportunities to strengthen relationships. For instance, if a loved one is struggling and we remain silent, we may think we're respecting their space or avoiding saying something wrong. However, to them, our silence might feel like indifference or a lack of care. Vulnerability isn't about having all the right words. It's about showing up and being present. A simple, heartfelt acknowledgement, "I'm here for you," or "I don't have the perfect words, but I want to support you," can mean the world to someone who feels alone. One of the reasons we resist vulnerability is the fear of being misunderstood or rejected. It's uncomfortable to put ourselves out there, to express emotions that may expose our weaknesses or insecurities. But what we often forget is that vulnerability is not a weakness. It's a sign of strength and courage. It shows that we are willing to take risks for the sake of connection. When we let others see our true selves, our fears, our joys, our struggles, we invite them to do the same. This mutual openness creates a space where trust and understanding can flourish. Avoiding vulnerability through silence doesn't just affect the other person, it also impacts us. When we suppress our emotions or avoid difficult conversations, we carry the weight of unspoken words and unresolved feelings. Over time, this can lead to regret, frustration, and even a sense of disconnection from ourselves. Being vulnerable allows us to release these emotional burdens and fosters a sense of authenticity in how we relate to the world. Consider situations where silence replaces vulnerability, when we don't apologize after a mistake, when we fail to express gratitude for someone's efforts, or when we avoid discussing conflicts for fear of confrontation. These moments, while seemingly small, have a significant impact on relationships. An unspoken apology can leave wounds unhealed. An unexpressed thank you can make someone feel unappreciated. A conversation avoided can cause misunderstandings to fester and grow. Vulnerability in these moments is not just an option, it's a necessity for maintaining emotional intimacy and mutual respect. Vulnerability also fosters empathy. When we open up to others about our struggles or emotions, we remind them that they're not alone. It humanizes us, making it easier for them to relate to us and feel understood in return. This reciprocity is the essence of meaningful relationships. While silence can create distance, vulnerability bridges the gap, fostering deeper connections and mutual support. In the end, avoiding vulnerability may feel like self-preservation, but it often isolates us from the very people we wish to be close to. Choosing vulnerability requires courage, but the rewards, stronger relationships, emotional intimacy, and a sense of true connection are invaluable. By stepping into discomfort and speaking our truths, we not only nurture our relationships, but also create a ripple effect of authenticity and understanding in the world around us. Unspoken words have a way of lingering, creating a ripple effect that can lead to misunderstandings, unresolved emotions, and a growing sense of isolation. When we withhold communication, whether due to fear, discomfort, or a mistaken belief that silence is harmless, we unintentionally open the door to consequences that can deeply affect our relationships and the emotional well-being of those around us. Words, even when imperfect, provide clarity, connection, and validation, while silence can leave others in a state of uncertainty and emotional vulnerability. One of the most significant consequences of unspoken words is the misunderstandings they create. When we fail to communicate, we leave room for others to interpret our silence in ways that often reflect their insecurities or fears. For example, if someone shares something personal or important and receives no response, they may assume that their feelings or experiences are not valued. This assumption might not align with our true intentions, but silence allows it to take root. Over time, these misinterpretations can create emotional distance, erode trust, and lead to unnecessary conflicts, all of which could have been avoided with simple, honest communication. Another consequence of withholding words is the accumulation of unresolved emotions. Relationships thrive on mutual understanding, which often requires difficult conversations or emotional exchanges. When we avoid expressing ourselves, whether it's an apology, gratitude, or an expression of love, we deprive both ourselves and others of the chance to address and resolve important emotional matters. Consider the impact of not apologizing after a mistake. The other person may carry feelings of hurt or resentment, while we carry the guilt of knowing we could have made things right but chose not to. These unresolved emotions can build up over time, creating a barrier that becomes harder to break down as the silence continues. Unspoken words can also contribute to feelings of isolation, especially for the people we care about most. When someone is struggling emotionally, our silence can feel like abandonment, even if we don't intend it that way. They may interpret our lack of communication as a lack of care or interest, which only deepens their sense of loneliness. A simple acknowledgement, such as, "I see you're going through something and I want to support you," can counteract this isolation and remind them that they are not alone. Silence, on the other hand, leaves them to grapple with their struggles in solitude, often amplifying their pain. Furthermore, unspoken words limit the opportunity for healing and growth. Honest communication, even when it's difficult or uncomfortable, can be transformative. Sharing our thoughts and feelings allows us to address misunderstandings, express support, and nurture emotional bonds. By contrast, silence keeps us stuck in a state of emotional stagnation, where the potential for resolution and connection remains untapped. For example, expressing gratitude to someone who has positively impacted our lives can strengthen the relationship and bring joy to both parties. When we withhold those words, we miss the chance to deepen that bond and show appreciation. Unspoken words carry weight. They leave questions unanswered, emotions unacknowledged, and opportunities for connection unrealized. While silence might feel easier in the moment, it often comes at the cost of clarity, trust, and emotional intimacy. Choosing to speak, even when it feels challenging, is a step toward fostering understanding, resolving conflict, and building stronger, healthier relationships. The power of words lies not in their perfection, but in their intention. By embracing open communication, we can create a world where no one has to wonder how much they mean to us or how deeply they are cared for.